Welcome, curious minds. How often do you truly look at the objects that surround you every single day? That chair you're sitting on, the mug in your hand, the lamp illuminating your space right now. Have you ever stopped to think about the stories they tell? The hidden history, the ingenuity, the sheer human creativity packed into their forms.
It's fascinating, isn't it? These aren't just inanimate items. They're vibrant reflections of human taste, technological leaps, and profound cultural changes spanning centuries.
Yeah.
Their design choices truly matter, offering a unique lens through which to understand the eras that produced them.
That's precisely what we're here to unpack. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into the captivating world of decorative arts. We've distilled a rich stack of sources, articles, research, and our own notes, tracing the evolution of style and design from classical antiquity all the way to contemporary movements. Our mission: to provide you a shortcut to understanding how these everyday objects became works of art, uncovering surprising facts and those wonderful aha moments along the way. You're about to discover just how much history and innovation are literally at your fingertips.
And our focus won't just be on aesthetics, though that's certainly part of it. We'll be examining how materials, technology, and even major societal shifts have continually reshaped the objects we live with, revealing the deeper why behind their design.
Okay, let's unpack this incredible journey. To begin our grand tour, we have to go all the way back, really, to the very dawn of decorative forms. Before art was hung on walls or sculpted for public display, it was often something functional that you held, something you used daily.
Right. From the earliest times, humans seem to have instinctively imbued their practical objects with beauty, kind of blurring the line between utility and aesthetic value.
So where do we see the first clear examples of this?
Well, consider the ancient Greek world. In thriving city-states like Athens and across the Aegean Islands and even in southern Italy and Sicily, specialist potters weren't simply making, basic utilitarian vessels.
They were doing more.
Much more. They were crafting decorative homeware. A perfect illustration of this early impulse to blend function with artistry is the Rhyton.
Ah, the Rhyton. That's such a fantastic example. Explain that a bit.
Sure, it started out as literally an ox horn used as a drinking cup, a natural, readily available vessel, pretty basic.
Right, just using what's there.
Exactly. But over time, that raw horn was transformed. Potters began to create ceramic replicas, meticulously molded and often carved, sometimes quite elaborately to mimic the horn's natural shape, but with an added level of refined artistry.
So it shows this fundamental human desire, not just to use something, but to elevate it, to make it beautiful, even when replicating something simple from nature.
Precisely. And from these functional roots, we see a profound shift with Byzantine art, emerging around 330 CE. The city of Byzantium, later known as Constantinople, became this extraordinary cultural bridge between East and West.
A real melting pot.
Absolutely. And its art became a powerful expression, fueled by both Christian spiritual zeal and, frankly, immense economic prosperity.
And the crowning jewel of that era, the Hagia Sophia, is truly a testament to this spiritual grandeur, isn't it?
Oh, undoubtedly. Begun by Constantius and completed by his son, this great Christian temple was designed to inspire awe. Imagine stepping inside and seeing light pouring through vast windows, reflecting off polychrome marbles, glinting from gold ornaments, exquisite mosaics, and intricate calligraphy covering the walls. It's a prime example of how art and architecture intertwine completely with religious devotion and, let's be honest, the assertion of imperial power.
Okay. And following this, what about early Islamic decorative art? They reached monumental heights too, didn't they?
They certainly did. The ambitions were huge. The Alhambra fortress in southern Spain, begun in the 13th century, is a stunning testament to the artistic sophistication of this period. I mean, every surface there became a canvas for intricate pattern and design. It's breathtaking.
And their ceramic innovations were absolutely groundbreaking from what I understand. That luster decoration in the 9th century, for instance? That sounds revolutionary.
It absolutely was. Luster decoration is a costly and technically very complicated technique. It involves applying a thin metallic film using metal oxides to create this shining, almost otherworldly surface on pottery.
Wow. So not just color, but light itself.
Exactly. It was about light and illusion. Then fast forward to the 11th century, and Islamic potters developed something called fritware. Yes. This sophisticated ceramic material was specifically designed to imitate the highly prized Chinese porcelain, which shows incredible cross-cultural influence and material innovation long before, the kind of global trade routes we think of today were fully established. They were already trying to replicate these desirable foreign goods.
That's fascinating. All right, let's continue our journey through the decorative arts. Moving into the mid-12th century, we see the dominance of the Gothic style. A profound force, really, that shaped European decorative art for roughly 4 centuries.
Yes, a very long run. Its origins were deeply rooted in the church, and its most enduring legacy is undoubtedly that incredible network of soaring cathedrals and abbeys that still inspire wonder across northern Europe today.
And what's truly defining here is how architectural innovation fundamentally drove this artistic movement, right?
Absolutely. The pointed arch, for instance, was a crucial breakthrough. Seems simple, perhaps, but it allowed builders to construct far larger, more complex structures. You could have these massive, light-filled interior spaces that seemed to defy gravity.
So it wasn't just practical.
No, not at all. It became a signature feature, liberating building design and shaping the entire Gothic aesthetic, the height, the light. It all stemmed from that innovation.
And it wasn't just about the towering structures themselves. Medieval decorative art flourished within these grand spaces, but it also extended into the secular world.
That's right. Take the Lady and the Unicorn tapestries, those magnificent late 15th century Flemish works. They represent a real high point of medieval decorative art.
They're stunning,
aren't they? And they wonderfully blur the line between the sacred and the everyday. Each of the 6 panels intricately depicts one of the senses, offering this rich tapestry of symbolism and exquisite detail, still debated what they truly mean.
And that international Gothic style, peaking in the late 14th century, that was known for those elongated, almost ethereal human figures.
Yes, very attenuated proportions. However, there was a growing desire, even then, for less stylized, more naturalistic depictions. The challenge was anatomical knowledge was still pretty poor, which limited truly realistic portraiture. But you see the beginnings of a shift towards greater verisimilitude.
Okay, and you can't really discuss Gothic art without talking about stained glass.
Oh, definitely not. It was profoundly important. Using strong primary colors, blues, reds, yellows, to illustrate biblical stories in a way that was both educational for a largely illiterate population and incredibly beautiful.
You can imagine the effect.
Think of Our Lady of the Beautiful Window in Chartres Cathedral. The light filtering through those vibrant panels must have created a truly mesmerizing, almost divine atmosphere within the cathedrals. It wasn't just decoration, it was part of the spiritual experience.
Absolutely. So as we transition into the 15th century, particularly in northern Italy, a new spirit swept across Europe, the Renaissance.
Yes, a huge shift. This period was defined by a profound rediscovery of classical learning. Architects, scientists, philosophers, artists, they all delved into ancient texts, especially the ideas of the Greek philosopher Aristotle, and began applying these principles to their contemporary work.
And here's where things get really interesting for decorative art specifically, isn't it? The whole idea of patronage changes.
It really does. The rich and powerful began to view the ownership and display of beautiful works of art not merely as a luxury, but almost as a virtue. A sign of sophistication and learning.
So it becomes a status symbol, but also something more.
Exactly. This spurred affluent patrons to commission magnificent pieces, using art as a sophisticated means to display their prosperity, their taste, and their intellectual prowess. It fundamentally shifted art's purpose, bringing it more prominently into the domestic sphere, into private palaces and villas.
We see this in architecture, too.
Oh, definitely. A pivotal figure was Andrea Palladio. He meticulously studied ancestral Roman texts, like Vitruvius, using their principles as the foundation for his own designs. His Villa Cornaro, built between 1552 and 1553, exemplifies his commitment to ideal classical proportions, embodying the Renaissance's embrace of harmonious order and balance.
And on the craft side, Italian maiolica is a fantastic example of the era's ingenuity and decorative flair.
Maiolica is wonderful. This tin-glazed earthenware was often used for specialized objects like drug jars or albarelli. What makes them distinctive is often their wasted shape designed for a secure hold. Very practical, and how the label describing the contents is beautifully integrated into the surrounding colored decoration.
So form and function beautifully combined.
Absolutely. This blend of function and exquisite artistry was incredibly significant throughout the 16th century. It wasn't just about making things pretty, it was about making functional things beautiful.
Okay, so as we advance now into the late 17th and early 18th centuries, it's worth touching on the broader context, right? The political landscape.
Yeah, it's important because it profoundly influenced artistic patronage and taste. For instance, the union of the English and Scottish parliaments in 1707 created the United Kingdom, a powerful and relatively stable state.
Which means more wealth, more stability for patrons.
Precisely. And simultaneously, you have the rise of Austria and Prussia as major European powers. These created new centers of wealth, all eager to display their status through opulent art and design. It really set the stage for the next big style explosion, the Rococo period.
Right. So as the 17th century drew to a close, decorative art slowly began to shed the heavy formal strictures of the preceding Baroque style.
Yeah, the Baroque could be quite imposing, quite formal. Rococo ushered in a vibrant new era, allowing artisans an unprecedented freedom to imbue their work with a much more personal, playful, and often intimate aesthetic.
And this really blossomed in Paris, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The Rococo style truly came to fruition in the extravagant commissions for the aristocratic Parisian society, especially during the Regence period, from about 1715 to 1723. It was a dazzling, somewhat audacious atmosphere.
What fueled it?
Well, it wasn't just local creativity. It was significantly influenced by exotic Oriental styles. Chinoiserie was huge, and also new natural resources pouring in from the Americas. It created this heady atmosphere for design.
And this newfound freedom truly reshaped furniture design. We start seeing new types of furniture appearing.
Exactly. The period saw the introduction of entirely new pieces specifically for these lavish, intimate salons. Think lighter tea tables, game tables, and sewing tables, often cleverly designed to be folded away when not needed.
More adaptable spaces.
Yes, and elegant writing tables for ladies also became popular. These were distinctly smaller and more refined than the heavier, more masculine bureau plats that had preceded them, reflecting changing social habits too.
And the materials and techniques, they sound incredibly luxurious.
They were. Exotic woods like amaranth, purple wood, and kingwood became highly fashionable. They were prized for their color and their ability to create intricate marquetry inlays, these beautiful, almost pictorial patterns in wood.
And the metal mounts, the ormolu.
Ah, yes, ormolu. Gilded bronze decorations. Ostensibly, they were there for protection, reinforcing corners and edges. But they were nevertheless exquisitely designed, becoming works of art in themselves, adding to the overall richness.
And mahogany starts to dominate?
Yes. From about 1725 onwards, mahogany began to replace walnut as the preferred wood across England, Europe, and the American colonies. Walnut suffered from blight, and it was getting expensive. Mahogany had this rich, consistent grain that was perfect for the large, smooth surfaces popular then. Though in America, they also used local timbers like maple, cherry, and walnut quite effectively.
And you mentioned immigrant craftsmen earlier. How significant were they in this Rococo period?
Hugely significant. We can't overlook the impact of over 200,000 Huguenots French Protestants who left France seeking religious freedom and employment abroad, particularly after the revocation of the Edict of Nantes.
A massive brain drain, essentially.
In terms of craft skills, absolutely. This massive influx of skilled artisans didn't just contribute to elite commissions for royalty and aristocracy. Crucially, they also brought their refined techniques in silversmithing, weaving, cabinet making to the production of domestic wares for the burgeoning middle-class households, spreading these decorative arts much more widely than before.
Okay, let's switch to ceramics. Germany was leading the way here.
Yes, on the ceramics front, Germany truly led the way in stoneware. Regions like Seeburg, known for its fine white body, and Westerwald, with its distinctive gray body, often decorated with cobalt blue, developed distinct styles. These showed the versatility of the material, often used for practical yet highly decorative tankards and bottles.
But the English catch up.
They do, with a key innovation. In Staffordshire, around 1720, potters developed a fine, strong, and crucially inexpensive white salt-glazed stoneware.
Salt-glazed. How did that work?
Basically, salt was thrown into the kiln at high temperature, creating sodium vapor which reacted with the silica in the clay body to form a thin, hard, slightly orange peel textured glaze. It was very durable.
And popular.
Incredibly popular. It was exported widely, even to North America, especially for domestic tableware. And they often crafted it into charming, playful forms. You mentioned teapots shaped as camels or houses earlier. That's this stuff.
Meanwhile, the secret of porcelain is spreading.
Yes. The closely guarded secret of hard-paste porcelain, first cracked in Europe at Meissen near Dresden, began to spread. The Vienna factory, established in 1719 with help from some defecting Meissen employees, started producing symmetrical Baroque forms, often with Oriental-inspired floral motifs or battle and hunting scenes.
But they embrace Rococo, too.
Oh, yes. By mid-century, Vienna, along with other prominent German factories like Hust, Frankenthal, Nymphenburg, and others, were fully embracing the asymmetrical Rococo styles and producing these delicate porcelain figures that became hugely fashionable.
And in England.
Across the Channel, Nicholas Sprymont's Chelsea porcelain factory, founded in 1746, produced delightful tureens shaped like animals and vegetables, cauliflowers, rabbits, you name it, and detailed botanical plates. You can really see the influence of his earlier career as a silversmith in the sculptural quality. And the Beau factory catered to a slightly wider market, often using underglaze, blue Chinese-inspired patterns.
Let's talk glass. What innovations were happening there?
Glassmaking also saw significant decorative innovation. The Schwarzlad, or black lead enameling technique, which had originated in Germany and Bohemia in the mid-16th century, really flourished in the 17th and 18th centuries. It was commonly applied to drinking vessels like the tall, cylindrical humpen and the heavy-footed ware, often depicting coats of arms, allegorical scenes, or portraits.
And that ruby glass, that sounds special.
It was. A truly luxurious innovation was Rubin glass, or gold ruby glass, developed by Johann Kunkel in Potsdam in the late 17th century. This deep pink or ruby red glass was created by adding gold chloride to the molten glass.
Old. So must have been expensive.
Incredibly expensive. So, pieces made from it were often finely engraved or cut to really showcase its intense, beautiful hue. It was a real luxury item.
And across the Atlantic.
In North America, the first successful American glass factory, Wistaburg Glass Works, was founded in New Jersey in the early 18th century by Caspar Wistar, marking the beginning of sustained American glass production. And engraved glass, which had Roman and Venetian origins, spread widely across Europe in the second half of the 16th century and continued to be popular.
Okay, metalware. Silver especially underwent a big change, didn't it?
Yes, silver transformed to suit new dining rituals and, frankly, displays of wealth. Elaborate entree dishes appeared in the late 17th century, sauce boats around 1715, and grand soup tureens by about 1720. These were often produced as part of large matched services.
So coordination becomes key.
Exactly. While early examples were simpler, by the 1730s and 40s, especially in France, they became incredibly ornate, adorned with scrollwork, shells, foliage, even forms decorated with realistically modeled vegetables, shellfish, and game animals. Pure Rococo exuberance.
And the Huguenots again.
Yes, the Huguenot immigration again played a strong role, profoundly influencing silverware in the Low Countries and Britain from the 1690s onwards. Artisans like Paul de Lamery in London, or Paul Crespin and Nicholas Sprimont, before he went into porcelain, produced pieces in an unmistakable Rococo style, characterized by elaborate scrolling, asymmetrical motifs, and fantastic naturalistic elements.
Any specific examples?
Well, Charles-Louis Girard's 1716 Rococo chocolate pot, with its charming animal feet and shell motifs, is a fantastic example of that early French Rococo energy. And across the Atlantic, North American silversmith showed a distinct preference for inverted pear-shaped teapots, often simpler but still elegant, highlighting regional variations in taste.
Timekeeping itself became an art form too, right? Especially in France.
Oh, definitely. French clock decoration reached new heights during the long reign of Louis XIV. The Sun King was famously obsessed with time, running his court on a strict timetable. He employed 4 clockmakers in his entourage, including André-Charles Boulle, famous for his inlay work, and Antoine Passemat, whose incredibly complex astronomical clock still keeps time at Versailles.
And the cases themselves were elaborate.
Incredibly diverse. Crafted from wood, metal, or combinations of materials, they were adorned with varied decorative embellishments. You had bulwark, that intricate inlay of brass and tortoiseshell, often in patterns of waves, flames, or foliage. Or you might find cases painted and enameled with floral motifs, similar to those found on porcelain, adding to the period's overall opulence. There was even a specific type, the pendule religieuse, a bracket clock named for its architectural similarity to Romanesque churches.
Fascinating. And textiles. Silk was key here.
Silk was huge. European silks, originally a natural fiber whose secrets came from China, saw a significant shift. France's 1667 ban on foreign silk imports, a protectionist measure, proved to be a turning point.
Also,
It single-handedly put the factories of Lyon on the global silk manufacturing map. Soon, France became the leading European silk producer, with Lyon alone employing over 3,000 weavers at its peak. They produced incredibly luxurious fabrics for fashion and interiors.
And tapestries.
Royal tapestry factories like Gobelin and Beauvais also flourished, producing enormous, intricate wall hangings. Beauvais, for example, incorporated whimsical Jean Bernat grotesques, these fantastical combinations of human, animal, and plant forms and scenes from the popular comedies of the playwright Molière into its designs.
And some of these factories still exist.
It's remarkable, yes. Aubusson, another famous French tapestry center, continues its legacy today, even collaborating with 20th century artists like Raoul Dufy and Graham Sutherland, showcasing the enduring power of these decorative traditions.
Amazing. Okay, so as the 18th century drew to a close and the early 19th century began, the decorative arts experienced another profound shift, back towards order, it seems.
Yes, this was Neoclassicism. It was largely a direct reaction against the perceived excesses, the asymmetry, the sometimes frivolous nature of the Baroque and Rococo styles. And it was spurred on by incredible archaeological discovery.
Pompeii and Herculaneum.
Exactly. The unearthing of ancient Roman sites like Herculaneum, Pompeii, and the Greek temples at Paestum in southern Italy absolutely captivated the European imagination. Aristocrats returning from their grand tours brought back classical souvenirs, statues, vases, fragments.
And drawing spread the word.
Yes. The influential engravings of artists like Giovanni Battista Piranesi with his dramatic views of Roman ruins, and architects like Robert Adam, who documented classical sites, further disseminated these ancient forms. Designers weren't merely imitating anymore, they were striving for what they saw as a timeless and authentic style rooted in classical rules of proportion and composition.
And this wasn't just an artistic movement, was it? It got tied up with politics.
Very much so. Napoleon Bonaparte, especially once crowned emperor, consciously leveraged neoclassical imagery, eagles, laurel wreaths, Roman architectural forms to boost his power and prestige, linking his rule to the glory of ancient Rome.
And Egypt.
Yes, his military campaigns and explorations in Egypt introduced a strong Egyptian influence into the style, particularly during his empire period. Think sphinxes, obelisks, lotus motifs. It added another exotic layer to the classical revival. When we look at the specific elements of neoclassical style, certain motifs became instantly recognizable, almost ubiquitous. The elegant classical urn shape, for instance, appeared everywhere.
Where would you see it?
Oh, as finials on clocks or furniture, surmounting candlesticks, inlaid as marquetry on commodes, painted onto porcelain. It was a core symbol.
And the lion's mask.
Yes, the lion's mask, a symbol of majesty and power in antiquity, was a popular feature on furniture, maybe on armrests or friezes or corners, and even on glass fronts. Those applied decorative blobs of glass.
Formal loose swags, too.
Right. Gilded bronze swags derived from carvings on Roman altars and sarcophagi, often featuring bundled laurel leaves, a symbol of honor and victory, tied with elegant ribbons, became a ubiquitous decorative element on furniture and metalware.
And that geometric pattern. The Greek key.
Yes, the Greek key, or meander, a common classical fret motif, was revived and used extensively. It appeared as continuous bands on architectural moldings, furniture borders, and ceramics, replacing the more elaborate C-scrolls and S-scrolls of the Rococo.
And flowers changed, too.
Floral painting on porcelain became much more naturalistic, moving away from stylized Rococo sprays towards more botanically accurate depictions. William Billingsley was a master of this, working for firms like Swansea and Derby.
And the classical column itself becomes fundamental.
Absolutely. The three main orders, the simple Doric, the scrolled Ionic, and the leafy Corinthian, became foundational architectural devices, influencing everything from the legs of chairs and tables to the overall structure of cabinets and commodes.
So furniture really straightened up, didn't it? The Louis VI style.
It certainly did. The Louis VI style, which radiated across Europe from France, was defined by pure symmetry, rectilinear forms, a sense of lightness, and elegant proportion. Master cabinet makers like Martin Carlin and Adam Weisweiler often abandoned heavy ormolu mounts in favor of more detailed carving or exquisite marquetry, allowing the beauty of mahogany grain to take center stage.
And the legs.
Tapering, fluted legs directly imitated Greek and Roman columns. Motifs included cameos, laurel swags, Greek urns, lyres, and stylized honeysuckle flowers called anthemia, all very classical.
And Napoleon's empire style, more imposing.
Yes, the empire style embraced a more masculine, sometimes even severe imperial tone, deeply tied to Roman military aesthetics. Furniture was strictly rectangular and symmetrical, often relying on architectural devices like columns, plinths, and pediments for visual effect.
What kind of motifs?
Motifs included symbols of warfare and victory-like fasces, those bound bundles of rods symbolizing authority, trophies of weapons, as well as animal motifs like ram's heads and lion's paws, alongside those Egyptian themes, sphinx heads, winged figures introduced after Napoleon's campaigns. Think classical gondola chairs, saber-legged chairs, sofa tables, secretaires with marble tops.
Okay, ceramics also followed this trend towards symmetry.
Yes, neoclassical ceramics generally featured more symmetrical shapes, less elaborate surface patterning, straighter sides for cups and beakers, and geometric patterns like borders and bands, balancing decoration with areas of plain color. Forms and motifs were directly drawn from ancient Rome and Greece, often based on the elegant urn shape or classical kylixes and amphorae.
And Wedgwood was huge here.
Josiah Wedgwood's creamware was a phenomenal success. It was a refined, pale earthenware that took decoration beautifully. It was so widely imitated on the continent that it contributed significantly to the demise of traditional tin-glazed earthenware, like faience and Delftware, by around 1800.
He updated other things too.
Yes, his updated red stoneware, which he called Rosso Antico, often featured engine-turned decoration, precise geometric patterns cut mechanically, and was sometimes left unglazed and decorated with black figures in direct imitation of Greek black figure vases.
He sounds like quite the businessman.
Oh, he was shrewd. But he was also committed to design principles aiming to preserve the elegant simplicity of the antique forms, making his quite sophisticated proto-modernist vision widely accessible through industrial production. You also see Prattware, often featuring transfer-printed popular subjects or molded classical figures and motifs.
Examples of specific ceramic items.
Think Derby teapots with elegant fluting, Meissen coffee pots adopting urn shapes, Sèvres porcelain cups with geometric borders, Cozzi figures inspired by classical sculpture, Derby botanical plates, Worcester tea canisters, Coalport ice pails, all reflecting that neoclassical taste.
And glass. How did neoclassicism affect glass?
In glass, decoration became more reflective of the style in its elegant forms rather than just surface patterns. Claret jugs and decanters, for example, were often fashioned into graceful baluster shapes or urn forms. And the rummer, a large bowled wine glass on a short stem, became a seminal form of the era, perfect for engraving.
So cutting and engraving were still popular.
Very much so. Inspired perhaps by the architectural drawings of Piranesi and Robert Adams, cut and engraved glass gained immense popularity. Pieces were meticulously designed with facets and patterns, flutes, diamonds, stars to sparkle through reflection and refraction, especially in candlelight.
Where was this glass being made?
European factories like France's Baccarat Glass House, founded 1764, and St. Louis Glass Works, established 1767, became renowned for their exquisite cut glass tableware from about 1800 onwards. And Ireland's glass industry saw a major revitalization after gaining free trade status in 1780. Irish glass became popular for its distinctive style of often quite shallow cutting and engraving, with typical forms like boat-shaped bowls and claret decanters with extended spouts. You even see highly ornate pieces like Medici-style cut glass vases with elaborate gilt bronze mounts featuring cupids.
Okay, metalware. You mentioned Sheffield plate earlier. That was a big deal.
Huge. Thomas Bolsover of Sheffield's discovery around 1742, the process of sandwiching a sheet of copper between two thinner sheets of silver and fusing them together through heat and pressure was revolutionary.
Why?
It created Sheffield plate, a material that looked like solid silver but was far, far cheaper to produce. It became incredibly popular, quickly displaced pewter for many household items, and by the 1780s, its widespread export across Europe and to the United States helped disseminate the neoclassical style far and wide.
Craftsmen embraced it.
Yes, figures like Matthew Boulton in Birmingham used Sheffield plate extensively for items like coffee pots, teapots, and candlesticks. He was clever, often adding extra silver reinforcement, applied edges at places prone to wear, like rims and handles. This old Sheffield plate remained popular until the even cheaper method of electroplating was discovered around 1840.
Any examples of Sheffield plate style?
You can see the elegance of the neoclassical style perfectly in pieces like Matthew Boulton & Co.'s three-light candelabra from around 1810-20, often featuring classical motifs like torch finials or urn-shaped sockets.
What about smaller precious objects, objets de virtu?
Yes, these virtuous objects, small, exquisitely crafted luxury items, became very popular, often exchanged as precious gifts. Snuff boxes, for instance, were a particular focus.
What were they made of?
All sorts of materials. Mother of pearl, porcelain, intricate micromosaics depicting Roman scenes, ivory, imported Japanese lacquer, precious stones, tortoiseshell, silver, gold. They were designed to appeal to both the aristocracy and the rising class of fashionable gentlemen, the Regency book. You might see a George III tortoiseshell and silver box, or a French two-color gold box, or even one made from papier-mâché by someone like Johann Heinrich Stoppwasser.
And folk art in America.
Yes, in America, the late 18th century brought what's often called a golden age of American folk art. This was strongly linked to the newly won national sovereignty and a desire to express a distinct American identity. This art was often characterized by a lack of formal academic training and followed the artistic traditions brought over by immigrant communities. It became a powerful medium for asserting individuality.
Like Fraktur.
Exactly. Fraktur are these wonderful illuminated manuscripts, essentially hand-drawn and decorated documents, produced primarily by German immigrants in Pennsylvania. Particularly famous are the Taufschein documents, birth and baptism records, often beautifully drawn and colored by local schoolmasters or ministers.
Let's turn to textiles. Those toiles de jouy sound fascinating.
They are. Their origin really lies in the huge popularity of imported Indian-printed cottons or chintzes in the late 17th century. They were so popular that France initially banned their import to protect its own silk industry.
But the ban was lifted.
Yes, eventually. And when it was lifted in 1759, an entrepreneur named Christophe Philippe Oberkampf founded a cloth printing works in the town of Jean-Alsace near Versailles. This gave rise to the famous toiles de jouy.
What did they look like?
Early ones often featured polychrome floral prints, but later they became particularly known for their monochrome printing, often in red, blue, or sepia on a white ground, depicting scenes like chinoiseries, contemporary vignettes of pastoral life, or stories from Greek and Roman mythology. They remain incredibly influential in design even today.
And samplers. They became more complex.
Yes, samplers evolved significantly. From the more randomly embroidered examples of the 17th century where girls practiced different stitches, they became more sophisticated pictorial exercises in the 18th and 19th centuries. They'd feature carefully arranged motifs, houses, animals, flowers, along with verses, alphabets, and often biblical symbolism. Adam and Eve became a popular motif from the 1740s onwards.
Reflecting social issues, too.
Sometimes, yes. By the early 19th century, anti-slavery imagery even began to appear on some samplers, reflecting the growing abolitionist movement. And there were specialized darning samplers, which showcased different darning stitches almost as works of art in themselves. You also had incredibly luxurious silks, like the Royal Lampas silk created by a designer named Michel for Marie Antoinette's apartments at Versailles, featuring oak boughs and flowers.
Finally, for this era, sculpture. Who were the key figures?
Well, the work of Jean-Antoine Houdon and his French peers really signaled a return to good taste, as they saw it, after the perceived excesses and lightness of Rococo. Houdon became particularly known for his portrait busts of the rich and famous Voltaire, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington. He had this remarkable ability to capture not just a likeness, but individual personalities, gestures, and expressions with startling realism, often in marble or terracotta.
And Etienne Maurice Falconet.
Falconet was another key figure, known for more monumental works, like his massive bronze equestrian statue of Peter the Great in St. Petersburg, finished in 1778. He actually controversially claimed that modern sculptors were better at lifelike portrayals than the ancients, believing sculpture should express living nature, animated, passionate. He challenged the dominance of antiquity.
But marble was still dominant.
Oh, yes. Marble was extensively used, both for depicting figures from antiquity gods, goddesses, heroes, and for elevating prominent people of the day, giving them a noble classical bearing.
Okay, so as we enter the 19th century proper, decorative arts took a fascinating, perhaps confusing turn into what's often called eclectic historicism. What does that mean?
It means designers started looking back, but instead of focusing primarily on the classical world like the Neoclassicists, they drew inspiration from a whole range of earlier historical styles. It was a reaction against what some saw as the rigidity of Neoclassicism, but also against the lingering Rococo influence. They explored styles of earlier ages, particularly the medieval world.
Like Gothic again.
Yes, Gothic revival was huge. But also Renaissance revival, Baroque revival, even Egyptian revival continued. It was a mix-and-match approach, often driven by a romantic view of the past.
Any big examples?
Think of Ludwig II of Bavaria's Neuschwanstein Castle, started in the 1860s. It's this fairy tale confection built in a romanticized Gothic style, and its interior decor illustrates scenes from Richard Wagner's operas based on medieval legends. Pure historicism.
And nationalism played a part.
It did. This was also an era of rising nationalism across Europe, which sparked renewed interest in national histories, folk motifs, and traditional crafts. This added another layer of cultural identity to design choices.
Global influences continued too.
Absolutely unabated. Chinese and Japanese ceramics and furniture, Persian carpets, colorful Iznik pottery from Turkey, and motifs from ancient Egypt all continued to inspire Western designers, contributing to a rich, sometimes bewildering tapestry of cross-cultural influences.
So what were the main design trends within this eclectic mix?
Well, as mentioned, Gothic revival was especially prevalent in Britain, fueled by writers like Sir Walter Scott and designers like Augustus Pugin. It involved a romanticized reworking of medieval church architecture, applying features like pointed arches, quatrefoils, and tracery onto often quite heavy-set oak furniture. Stained glass also saw a major revival in this style.
And that obsession with nature.
Yes, representationalism. The 19th century fascination with natural science, botany, and zoology led to incredibly realistic depictions of animal and plant life in decorative arts. Craftsmen aimed to replicate even the smallest details, sometimes to an almost obsessive degree.
Rococo came back too.
Yes, there was a significant Rococo revival, particularly from the mid-century onwards. Renewed interest in 18th century French design, especially the Louis V style, coincided with new technologies like steam-powered carving machines and die stamping for metalwork, which allowed for more economic reproductions of characteristic curled scrolls, shell motifs, and intricate foliate applications.
But a key characteristic was maybe too much decoration.
That's often the criticism, yes. A key characteristic of much 19th century decorative art was an almost excessive ornament. Craftsmen, keen to show off their technical virtuosity, perhaps fueled by industrial production possibilities, often cluttered wares with elaborate enameling, gilding, carving, and intricate applied ornament, sometimes to the point where the basic form of the object was almost obscured. More was definitely more.
Okay, ceramics. What was happening there? Folk styles.
We did see a folk ceramic revival in some areas, with charming, often quite naive pieces like the Quimper faience from Brittany and France, or revived styles from German centers like Nuremberg or Stretzheim, sometimes featuring fairy tale scenes. Maiolica also made a comeback, notably at the Cantagalli factory in Italy, where they meticulously copied 14th to 16th century Spanish and Italian styles.
But mass production was dominant.
For the wider market, absolutely. Perhaps most successful commercially were the mass-produced blue and white transfer-printed wares from Staffordshire in England. Using engraved copper plates to transfer patterns onto the pottery before glazing allowed for complex designs at low cost.
What kind of designs?
They catered heavily to the burgeoning middle classes, featuring a vast array of designs. Classical scenes, mythical stories, topographical views of stately homes or picturesque landscapes, popular Chinese patterns like the willow pattern, Indian motifs, and commemorative pieces for royal events, like Queen Victoria's wedding in 1840.
What about American ceramics?
In America, Rockingham ware, a type of brown glazed earthenware often with mottled effects, was popular, made by firms like Norton and Fenton, who also patented a colorful flint enamel glaze in 1849. Utilitarian stoneware, non-porous jugs, crocks, jars, often decorated with simple cobalt blue designs, was essential for homes and businesses before refrigeration.
And Meissen, the original porcelain giant.
Meissen, the first European hard-paste porcelain factory, underwent a significant transformation in the mid-19th century. Under a new director, Heinrich Gottlieb Kuhn, production methods were modernized and new, brighter glaze colors were developed.
And stylistically?
The head modeler from 1849, Ernst August Luderitz, oversaw a reintroduction of elaborate Rococo and neoclassical figures and styles, often updated for Victorian tastes. Meissen ceramics of this period became arguably the most flamboyant ever produced. They mastered complex techniques like the Schneeballen snowball technique, painstakingly applying hundreds of tiny individually modeled flowers to the surface.
Wow.
They used theatrical motifs like intertwined snake handles, lavish gilding, and newly expanded color ranges to solidify their niche supplying status symbols to wealthy industrialists across Europe and America. It was peak Victorian exuberance.
But copies were an issue.
Yes, a note on authenticity. Meissen's famous cross swords mark was frequently imitated by inferior factories, particularly those working in and around nearby Dresden, leading to the often confusing term Dresden porcelain. True Meissen usually is a very precise mark.
Okay, glass. What were the trends in the 19th century?
Surface decoration remained key. Enameling became fashionable again around 1890, often combined with gilding. French enamelers were highly sought after. Oscar Pierre Hérode, for example, worked for the English firm Stevens and Williams on their tapestry glass.
And that rock crystal revival.
Yes, the English firm Thomas Webb and Sons revived the medieval technique of rock crystal, which involved deep cutting and engraving on a thick, clear glass, followed by brilliant polishing to mimic actual carved rock crystal. This intricate and laborious style was quickly adopted by competitors like Stevens and Williams, often featuring fashionable Japanese-style designs, and also by major continental firms like Baccarat and American companies like Thomas G. Hawks & Co.
But the biggest innovation was pressed glass.
Absolutely. The greatest technical innovation of the century in glass was arguably pressed glass, invented in the United States in the 1820s. This method involved pressing molten lead glass into intricately patterned metal molds.
Making it cheaper.
Much cheaper. It allowed for the mass production of elaborate-looking glassware at a fraction of the cost of hand-cut glass. Factories sprang up across New England, making elegant patterned glass accessible to a much wider market. Patterns often imitated expensive cut glass styles initially, but later developed unique designs. Revival styles were also popular, like J&L Lobmere in Vienna making Renaissance revival jugs or Arabian-style vases inspired by Islamic mosque lamps.
Metalware. You said the 1840s were a golden age for silver.
Yes, driven by increasingly refined and elaborate Victorian dining habits and that characteristic love of ostentatious display. Plus, the use of machine-produced parts like stamped components aided the massive production of domestic wares like tea sets, flatware, and centerpieces.
Tiffany's role.
Firms like Tiffany & Co. in New York became masters at combining mass production techniques with superb quality control and design, achieving international renown. Historical revival styles where dominant German firms copied Baroque and Renaissance forms, while the naturally plastic quality of silver made it perfectly suited for the revived Rococo, or Louis V style, with its scrolls and flowers.
And electroplating changed everything.
Completely. Electroplating, pioneered and patented in 1840 by Eltington & Co. in Birmingham, England, was revolutionary. This method used electric current to deposit a thin, even layer of pure silver onto a base metal object, usually nickel silver.
Cheaper than Sheffield plate.
Yes, significantly cheaper than both old Sheffield plate and solid sterling silver. It also had the advantage that the plating could cover seams and joints, allowing for more complex shapes and decoration. It was rapidly adopted worldwide for everything from household wares like cutlery and teapots to impressive, elaborate exhibition pieces shown at the great international fairs. Bronze was also important, especially in France, valued for its fusibility for casting detailed ornaments like clock cases or fireplace chinnis.
You mentioned Christopher Dresser briefly earlier. Where does he fit in?
Dresser's a fascinating figure, really bridging the 19th century and the beginnings of modernism. While working within the Victorian industrial system, he increasingly moved towards making objects beautiful through their inherent form and fitness for purpose, rather than just applied ornament. He was a key figure leading towards the aesthetic movement.
Pattern books remained important guides.
Yes, pattern books continued to play a crucial role throughout the 19th century, serving as guides for designers and manufacturers basing their work on historical styles. This tradition went way back, from Vitruvius in ancient Rome to Palladio in the Renaissance.
And the 18th century ones are still used?
Absolutely. The influential tomes published by English cabinet makers like Chippendale, Hepplewhite, and Sheraton in the 18th century remained essential references, their designs adapted and reinterpreted. French publications, like those by Percier and Fontaine documenting the Empire style, also reached the New World.
What about new pattern books?
Owen Jones's The Grammar of Ornament, published after the 1851 Great Exhibition at London's Crystal Palace, became a hugely influential sourcebook. That exhibition itself showcased the prevailing taste, particularly the Gothic revival, heavily promoted by Augustus Pugin's medieval court.
And Japanese influence in these books.
Interestingly, despite discerning European collectors being aware of Japanese art through limited trade, its influence was largely absent from mainstream 19th century pattern books until Japan reopened for wider trade during the Meiji period, 1868 to 1912. Only then did Japanese motifs really start appearing systematically in Western design guides.
Souvenirs were big too.
Yes, the rise of tourism, especially the Grand Tour tradition continuing and expanding, fueled a market for souvenirs. Think of micromosaic snuff boxes or tabletops depicting famous Roman sites like Pliny's Doves or St. Peter's Square, or Bohemian glass tumblers finely engraved with views of popular spa towns like Baden-Baden or Carlsbad.
Textiles in the 19th century. Carpets.
The Persian carpet industry, which had declined, saw a major revival, often looking back to earlier classical designs and borrowing motifs. Demand grew enormously in the West for bright, colorful rugs from the exotic East. Chinese carpets, often with scattered peony designs, became particularly popular in the United States.
And paisley shawls.
Paisley shawls, originally expensive woven items from cashmere imitating a stylized teardrop or cone-shaped motif called the botte, became hugely fashionable. Technological advances in weaving, particularly the jacquard loom, allowed them to be mass-produced first in Paisley, Scotland, hence the name, making these intricate designs widely accessible.
American quilts.
American quilts also flourished during the 19th century. Applique quilts, where shapes are cut out and stitched onto a background, often featured pictorial designs with flowers, hearts, or symbolic pineapples. Album or friendship quilts, made up of blocks created by different individuals, were often given as poignant goodbye presents to women heading west with the pioneers.
And that mourning embroidery tradition.
Yes, this rather poignant tradition involved creating embroidered pictures, often on silk, to commemorate loved ones who had died. They typically featured classical symbols like funeral urns, weeping willow trees, and mourning figures, along with the name and dates of the deceased. They were particularly popular in America in memory of George Washington, and in Britain after the death of Admiral Nelson.
Sculpture in the 19th century. More animals.
Yes, animal sculpture or animalier sculpture remained very popular. Jean-Antoine Barré, the French sculptor we mentioned earlier, continued to be influential. He created these dynamic bronze sculptures of wild animals, often showing nature in the raw, lions attacking prey, stags locking horns. His deep study of animal anatomy allowed him to capture their raw power and movement with incredible realism.
And smaller, more affordable bronzes?
That trend also continued. In Vienna, Franz Bergmann's foundry, active from the mid-1800s, specialized in producing miniature bronze animals and birds. He innovatively chose to cold paint his bronzes, applying paint after casting, rather than using colored patinas to achieve greater realism and detail, making them more affordable and widely collected.
And the American West in art.
Yes, the late 19th and early 20th centuries saw the rise of American Western art. Figures like Charles Marion Russell, a largely self-taught artist who lived among cowboys and Native Americans in Montana, and Charles Schreyvogel, another painter known for his dramatic depictions of cavalrymen and Native Americans, captured the life of the frontier with remarkable detail and action. Their work satisfied a growing nostalgia in the East for the disappearing Old West.
Okay, moving into the late 19th and early 20th centuries, we see a fascinating philosophical reaction against all that fussy revivalist style of the Victorian era. This was the arts and crafts movement.
Yes, a really significant shift in thinking. It aimed to strip away what proponents saw as unnecessary artifice and return to simple, honest craftsmanship, valuing the maker and the process.
What were the ideals?
Well, in Europe, there was often a utopian idealization of the pre-industrial age, looking back to medieval craftsmanship as a golden era. In America, somewhat similarly, the art and craft traditions of native peoples were often held up as an ideal of integrated, meaningful making.
Key figures, Morris and Ruskin.
Definitely. William Morris's famous detestation of machinery, though perhaps seen by some as elitist, resonated strongly with the ideas of the art critic John Ruskin. Ruskin pleaded for redeveloping rural industry and held romantic notions of a benevolent feudal society where craftspeople had dignity.
And the guild system.
The revival of the medieval guild system was central to the movement's philosophy. Groups like the Art Workers Guild, founded in London in 1884, or communities like the Haslemere peasant industries, aimed to serve as training grounds for new generations of craftspeople, empowering local communities and consciously trying to undermine the dominance of urban factories.
What's truly interesting here is how global influences shaped this movement too, particularly from Japan.
Absolutely. The reopening of Japanese ports for wider trade in 1859 created a huge demand in the West for Japanese goods and aesthetics, known as Japaneserie. This was showcased prominently at the 1862 International Exhibition in London and became a major pillar of the related aesthetic style.
What characterized Japaneserie?
Things like Japanese-influenced glazes on ceramics, the use of asymmetry, simplified forms, natural motifs like bamboo or cranes, and spare, often rectilinear construction in furniture. The best arts and craft designers weren't just copying motifs, they were absorbing the underlying principles of Japanese design: simplicity, harmony with nature, truth to materials, and fusing them with their own work, creating truly original pieces. Aesthetic interiors often featured tertiary colors like greens and blues, gold accents, and simple, often ebonized furniture.
Okay, British arts and crafts furniture.
Key figures include C.F.A. Voysey, whose designs often featured plain oak with very little ornament, emphasizing proportion and structure, and the Cotswold School, including Ernest Gimson and Edward Gardner, produced beautifully crafted furniture using native woods like oak and walnut, but also ebony, sometimes with delicate inlays of contrasting woods like holly or even iridescent abalone shell.
And in America, the Stickley dynasty was huge.
Profoundly influential. Gustav Stickley, who trained as a stonemason, was deeply influenced by Ruskin and Morris after a trip to Britain. He admired simplicity and honesty in construction, a philosophy reinforced by his distaste for what he saw as clumsy reproduction and overwrought decoration at the 1900 Paris Exposition Universelle. His sturdy, rectilinear, mission-style furniture profoundly affected American home interiors.
But his brothers were maybe more commercial.
Yes, his brothers, Leopold and George Stickley, L&J.G. Stickley, found greater financial success by adapting the style for more efficient, partly mechanical production. They marketed their output as simple furniture built along mission lines, making the aesthetic more accessible. Later, they launched the Cherry Valley collection, which drew on vernacular early American forms using native black cherry wood. Another brother, Albert Stickley, used the trademark quaint furniture for his designs, also emphasizing rigid rectilinear forms and exposed structural elements.
Who else was important in American arts and crafts furniture?
Designers like Harvey Ellis, who worked briefly for Gustav Stickley, introduced more delicate floral inlay work using materials like pewter and stained fruit wood. Firms like the Shop of the Crafters in Cincinnati used rectilinear members with decorative cutouts. Oscar Onken's factory imported Austrian woods for contrasting panels and marquetry.
What are the key stylistic features to look for?
Exposed structural elements are a big one, things like visible dowels, through tenons where the end of one piece of wood passes visibly through another, often secured with wedges, mortise, and tenon joints. Also prominent, often hand-hammered metal handles and chunky hinges, subtle inlays, and sometimes surfaces finished with an adze, leaving textured tool marks. It celebrated the making process.
Ceramics and arts and crafts. Tell us about George Orr.
George Orr, the mad potter of Biloxi. He's a unique figure, truly embodying the ideal of personal expression in the era. He had this incredibly intense personal relationship with his craft. He dug his own clay from the Chattahoochee River, formulated his own experimental glazes, built his own idiosyncratic pottery building.
And his pots were unique.
Absolutely wild. Thin-walled, twisted, ruffled, dented, collapsed forms, covered in unconventional, often metallic or strangely colored glazes. He famously called his vessels his mud babies, and after a fire destroyed his workshop, he referred to the salvaged, often warped pieces as his burnt babies. He was decades ahead of his time, really a proto-abstract expressionist in clay.
What about the more established American art potteries?
There are many important ones. Chelsea Ceramic Artworks, founded near Boston in 1872, was one of the first, known initially for fine redware and later for glazed founts. Hugh Robertson there became obsessed with recreating the legendary Chinese oxblood glaze, finally achieving success with his Robertson's Blood in 1888 after years of costly experiments.
And Fulpa pottery.
Fulper Pottery Company in New Jersey launched its Weisskraft line of art pottery in 1909. They became renowned for a staggering variety of complex glazes, gloss, luster, crystalline, and especially their distinctive matte famille rose glazes with evocative names like cat's eye, leopard sin, and elephant's breath. Other key firms include Gruby Fanes in Boston, known for matte green glazes and molded leaf forms, Marblehead Pottery, Dedham Pottery, crackled glaze with blue borders, Pewabic Pottery in Detroit, and Clifton Pottery, which sometimes used Native American tribal designs.
And British ceramics.
In Britain, small art potteries often led the market in terms of innovation. Dalton & Co. at their Lambeth factory in London famously gave free artistic rein to their designers and decorators, pioneering the employment of female staff like Emily Edwards and Hannah Barlow, who became known for her incised depictions of animals.
Ruskin pottery, named after the critic.
Yes. The Ruskin Pottery, founded by William Howson Taylor near Birmingham, was named in honor of John Ruskin. Taylor became known for mastering difficult, high-temperature flambe glazes, inspired by Ming Dynasty Chinese examples, producing these lustrous crimson effects often streaked with turquoise or purple. The pottery focused on simple, elegant shapes derived from Chinese models, letting the carefully worked glazes be the main decoration. They also supplied ceramic cabochons, polished stone-like gems to department stores like Liberty & Co. for use in metalwork and jewelry.
And William de Morgan.
De Morgan, a close associate of William Morris, had a major breakthrough in 1873, rediscovering the lost technique of luster glazing used in Islamic pottery centuries earlier. He produced tiles and vessels with vivid colors using a distinctive Persian palette turquoise, lemon yellow, purple green, deep red, often featuring fantastical creatures, ships, or scrolling foliage inspired by 16th century Iznik wares from Turkey.
Stained glass also saw a revival.
Yes, very much so. Tied into the Gothic revival initially, but developing its own arts and crafts character. William Morris deeply admired medieval leaded glass, touring Gothic cathedrals to study it. His firm, Morris, Marshall, Faulkner & Co., later Morris & Co., established its reputation early on for stained glass, using designs from leading pre-Raphaelite painters like Edward Burne-Jones and Dante Gabriel Rossetti.
And in America.
John Lafarge was a major American innovator in stained glass. He combined pre-Raphaelite influences with an appreciation for Japanese prints to develop his own unique style of leaded glass. He experimented with techniques like layering glass, using opalescent glass, which he patented, and incorporating methods like cloisonne, using metal wires, and confetti glass, embedding small glass fragments for rich textures and effects, particularly in church commissions.
And lampshades became popular.
Yes, leaded glass lampshades became a very common application of arts and crafts principles in the home, providing warm, colored light. Think of the iconic designs associated with Tiffany, though he fits more into Art Nouveau.
Lighting itself changed dramatically with electricity.
It really did. Artificial lighting underwent a revolution with Thomas Edison's practical incandescent light bulb becoming available in the 1880s. This had a huge effect on interior design and lighting fixture design, particularly in the U.S., where electrification happened relatively quickly.
Who were the key designers?
W.A.S. Benson, an associate of William Morris in England, was a pioneer of electric light designs. He often used polished copper and brass, designing shades and reflectors to deflect light downwards effectively.
And American makers.
American arts and crafts practitioners like Dirk Van Erp in San Francisco and the Roycroft community in East Aurora, New York, favored hand-hammered copperware for lamp bases and shades. Van Erp famously started by converting brass shell casings and even old copper milk cans into lamp bases, often paired with shades made from translucent mica panels.
Architects got involved, too.
Yes, influential architects associated with the movement, like Green and Green in California or Frank Lloyd Wright in the Midwest, increasingly integrated lighting fixtures as a key feature of their interior designs, using them to define specific areas or designing innovative recessed or built-in lighting.
Metalware skills were revived through the guilds.
Yes, the reestablishment of those medieval-style guild systems by figures like John Ruskin, William Morris, and C.R. Ashby, founder of the Guild of Handicraft, was crucial in preserving and promoting British metalware skills, which were threatened by industrialization. These guilds provided training grounds where master craftsmen could pass on their expertise in techniques like hand-raising, chasing, and enameling.
Enamel became important.
Enamel experienced a revival as a fine art medium, providing bright, polychrome embellishment to silver and copper items like boxes, bowls, and jewelry. Subjects often included romanticized natural landscapes, galleons in full sail, or heraldic motifs. Omar Ramsden and Fleetwood Charles Varley were notable British practitioners.
And the Celtic Revival.
Archibald Knox, a designer from the Isle of Man, created highly original work for Liberty & Co. in London that was at the vanguard of the Celtic Revival. He skillfully adapted ancient Celtic motifs, like intricate interlacing knots and stylized wave scroll patterns for use on pewter, which he helped popularize as Tudorware, and silver, Cummick-ware.
Clocks changed shape, too.
Yes, arts and crafts clocks often took on more sculptural qualities, with softer curves and asymmetry sometimes replacing the strict straight lines of earlier periods. Silver clock cases were often embossed with flowing Art Nouveau-influenced organic decoration. The technique of repoussé hammering decoration from the inside to raise it in relief was well suited to the softer metals like silver and brass favored by arts and crafts metalworkers. Firms associated with guilds like Keswick School of Industrial Arts or the Newlyn Industrial Class specialized in this kind of work.
Finally, textiles and the arts and crafts movement.
William Morris was central here, too. He actually taught himself embroidery stitches by carefully unpicking old medieval samples. He then designed patterns that his wife Jane and her sister Elizabeth Burden produced as embroidered wall hangings for his own home, the Red House. Needlecraft, in fact, became an area largely dominated by women during this era, seen as a suitable domestic accomplishment, but raised to an art form through organizations like the Royal School of Needlework.
And commercial design studios.
Yes, firms like the Silver Studio in London played a significant role. Founded by Arthur Silver in 1880, they commissioned and produced patterns for textiles and wallpapers in various styles, including Art Nouveau and arts and crafts. They successfully incorporated fashionable French floral motifs, like stylized seed pods and thistles, into designs that supplied major retailers like Liberty & Co. and sold well internationally.
Okay, now let's dive into Art Nouveau, which overlaps with arts and crafts, but has a very distinct feel. It's often described as the first truly modern style.
Yes, Art Nouveau, flourishing roughly between 1890 and 1910, was arguably the first self-conscious international attempt to create a completely new style for the modern age, breaking away from historical revivals. It aimed to transform visual culture by blurring the lines between the so-called high arts of painting and sculpture and the applied or decorative arts.
So it covered everything.
Absolutely. From architecture and furniture down to jewelry, biscuit tins, and advertising posters, it really emphasized modernity and aimed to permeate all aspects of life.
And its key visual element is that famous line.
The whiplash motif, yes,
Yeah.
it's truly defining. This dynamic, energetic, swirling line, often resembling unfurling plant roots, tendrils, or indeed the crack of a whip, was pioneered early on by designers like Arthur H. McMurdo in Britain and Hermann Obrist in Germany. This motif quickly pervaded almost all decorative art forms associated with Art Nouveau, giving the style its signature organic flow and sense of movement.
How did this translate into furniture?
We see incredible organic forms and often striking material contrasts. Louis Majorelle, working in Nancy, France, focused on hand-carved wood, often walnut or fruit woods, with motifs of leaves, fruit, flowers like water lilies or orchids, all rendered with those characteristic undulating lines of stems and roots. He also skillfully incorporated wrought iron into his designs, reflecting Nancy's location in the Lorraine region with its strong iron-smelting industry.
And Victor Horta in Belgium.
Horta, primarily an architect, was known for his exuberant use of the whiplash motif in both his building interiors, like the famous staircase in his own Brussels home, now the Horta Museum, and the furniture he designed to go in them. He loved playing with material contrasts, cold metal against warm wood, smooth, polished marble against rough-hewn stone. His furniture was often designed as part of a unified scheme for specific houses, and sometimes had dual purposes, like a bed with integrated bedside tables and light fixtures.
Carlo Bugatti sounds completely different again.
He was. Carlo Bugatti, working in Italy, took an even more unconventional, almost eccentric route. His highly distinctive, handmade, and often hand-painted furniture was heavily influenced by Middle Eastern, North African, Moorish, and Japanese art.
What kind of features?
He incorporated elements like keyhole arches, Egyptian-style latticework, sometimes even inlaid Arabic writing motifs. He used unusual materials like stretched parchment or vellum alongside wood, brass, pewter, bone, and mother-of-pearl inlays. His pieces often featured quirky devices like wheel-shaped leg supports or dragonfly-shaped handles. Highly original, if perhaps not always comfortable.
The ceramics in Art Nouveau, glazes were key.
Yes, innovative glazes were very important. Theodore Deck in France was a pioneer of artist pottery, experimenting with vibrant, often lustrous glazes like his famous turquoise Deck Blue. The Zolnay factory in Hungary became particularly renowned for its iridescent Eosin glaze, which shimmered with metallic colors, often applied to vessels with organic, asymmetrical forms featuring floral motifs or stylized figures. They also experimented with crystalline glazes.
And ideas spread between factories.
Oh yes, knowledge transfer was common. Ideas and techniques often spread through skilled workers moving between different factories. For example, Jacques Sicard brought his expertise in French luster glaze techniques to the Weller pottery in Ohio, USA, enabling them to produce their Sicardo line.
Danish factories were important too.
Very much so. Factories like Royal Copenhagen and Bing and Grøndal in Denmark developed sophisticated high-temperature underglaze painting techniques, allowing for subtle atmospheric decoration, often featuring local flora, fauna, or moody landscapes. Their work was highly praised at the 1900 Paris Exposition Universelle.
What about amphora vases?
The amphora works in the Teplitz region of Bohemia, now Czech Republic, produced ceramics that truly captured the Art Nouveau idiom. Their vases were often organic, even zoomorphic in shape, with handles resembling twisting stems or creatures. Decoration was inspired by nature. Water lilies, foliage, insects, or featured elongated, dreamy female figures draped in flowing robes, often incorporating those characteristic whiplash motifs.
Female figures seem popular.
Yes, many factories capitalized on the fin de siècle vogue for sensual, sometimes erotic images of women. Sèvres, in France, produced Agathon Lard's famous series of biscuit porcelain figures based on the swirling movements of the dancer Louis Fuller. Royal Copenhagen also produced delicately colored sculptural figures of women and children.
Glass. Iridescence makes a comeback.
Yes, glass also experienced a major rebirth of iridescence, partly inspired by the shimmering surfaces found on excavated ancient Roman glass that had been buried for centuries. This iridescent glass, which gleamed with a vast array of shifting colors like oil on water, was perfectly suited to the organic forms of Art Nouveau and looked spectacular under the newly invented electric light, really showing off its sparkle.
And Tiffany's the big name here.
Louis Comfort Tiffany in New York is famously associated with iridescent glass, which he patented under the name Favril glass in 1894. His Tiffany Studios, founded around 1900, became incredibly famous for creating iconic lamps that married intricate leaded glass shades with beautifully crafted bronze bases, often incorporating natural forms. The stands weren't just functional, they were integral parts of the design, sometimes forming tree trunks or lily pads, with the metal leading between the glass pieces forming elements like dragonfly wings or flower veins.
Who else was working with iridescent glass?
Émile Gallé, based in Nancy-like-Majorelle, was another giant of Art Nouveau glass. He saw nature as the underlying force of life, creating pieces with scientifically accurate depictions of plants and insects, especially dragonflies. He also used symbolism, creating vers parlant, talking glass, inscribed with poetry. He pioneered layered cameo glass techniques. Tiffany actually faced competition. He even sued the Bohemian factory Loewitz due to the similarity of their iridescent glass. Max Ritter von Spahn, Loewitz's director, experimented with dripping trails, spots, ribbons, and streaks of contrasting glass, often in startlingly modern vase shapes.
And American lamps.
The Pearpoint Corporation in Massachusetts became known for its distinctive puffy lampshades, which were molded with high-relief flowers, foliage, bees, or butterflies, then reverse-painted from the inside in delicate pastel tints.
Metalware in Art Nouveau. Still using traditional techniques.
Yes, many Art Nouveau designers disdained what they saw as soulless factory methods, instead reviving and valuing traditional handcraft techniques. Things like planishing, smoothing metal with careful hammer strokes, and embossing or repoussé, hammering decoration from the inside to raise it in relief, often refined with chasing, working the details from the front.
Mixing materials, too.
Yes, combining different metals like gold and silver, or mixing metals with other materials like ivory, horn, enamel, or semi-precious stones was characteristic. Lucien Gaillard in Paris famously made exquisite combs from carved horn, sometimes incorporating precious metals or gems, often inspired by ancient Egyptian motifs like the scarab beetle or Japanese aesthetics.
Japanese influence was strong in metalware.
Very strong. Motifs like insects, dragonflies, butterflies, birds, cranes, flowers, cherry blossoms, chrysanthemums, bamboo stalks, and fans filtered into Western metalware design, often fusing elegantly with the flowing lines and asymmetry inherited from the Rococo revival.
Was there mass-produced Art Nouveau metal?
Yes, while many designers focused on unique, handcrafted pieces, the German firm, WMF, Württembergische Metallerun Fabric, became a leader in producing less luxurious, but still quintessentially Art Nouveau, mass-produced metalware. They mainly used pewter or electroplated brass, Britannia metal, making the style accessible for items like trays, tankards, and candlestick holders.
Jewelry. Lalique was key.
René Lalique, working in Paris, was a towering figure in Art Nouveau jewelry. He deliberately set a trend for valuing imaginative design and exquisite craftsmanship over the mere intrinsic value of precious materials. He incorporated unconventional materials like horn, ivory, enamel, and glass alongside gemstones, creating stunningly original pieces often featuring motifs of insects, plants, or mythical female figures.
And affordable Art Nouveau jewelry.
In the U.S., firms like Unger Brothers in Newark, New Jersey, mass-produced affordable sterling silver items, brooches, belt buckles, necklaces featuring characteristic Art Nouveau motifs, especially the ubiquitous languid maiden with whiplash hair.
Textiles reflected this style, too.
Of course. Soft furnishings, curtains, upholstery fabrics, and rugs were widely decorated with stylized Art Nouveau flowers like poppies, lilies, irises, foliage, sinuous animals like peacocks or snakes, and birds. Designers like CFA Voisey and firms like the Silver Studio were prominent suppliers of Art Nouveau textile patterns in Britain.
And sculpture and posters.
Louis Fuller. Yes, Louis Fuller, the innovative American dancer who performed in Paris using colored electric lights to illuminate her voluminous swirling silk drapery, became a major inspiration for Art Nouveau artists and sculptors. Numerous dancing figurines capturing her dynamic movement epitomized the sensuous energy of French Art Nouveau.
And Alphonse Mucha.
Mucha, a Czech artist working in Paris, became the undisputed master of the Art Nouveau poster. He gained fame designing posters for the actress Sarah Bernhardt. His highly recognizable style featured sophisticated compositions centered on beautiful women with distinctive flowing whiplash hair, often adorned with elaborate jewelry and surrounded by intricate borders incorporating floral motifs or symbolic forms drawn from Eastern art. His work launched a major trend in advertising and graphic design.
Okay, a sharp pivot now. Let's move into the 20th century proper and modernism. A completely different mindset, wasn't it?
Completely. Modernism, emerging in the early decades of the 20th century and really taking hold after World War I, represented a fundamental break with the past. It generally embraced, rather than rejected, the machine age. It believed intensely in the power of industrial technology and rational design to change the world for the better.
Often linked with social change, too.
Yes, it was often allied with progressive, sometimes left-wing social and political beliefs. It wasn't just about aesthetics, it was a conscious effort to rethink and reshape society, to create a new visual language for a new modern era, especially in the wake of the unprecedented destruction of the First World War.
And the Bauhaus is central to this.
Absolutely central. The Bauhaus, founded in Weimar, Germany by architect Walter Gropius in 1919, became a seminal art and design school. It functioned, in Gropius's words, as a laboratory of modernity, focused on uniting art, craft, and technology, ultimately aiming to create well-designed, functional prototypes suitable for mass production by industry.
What are some iconic Bauhaus designs?
There are many, but perhaps Marcel Breuer's revolutionary tubular steel-framed Wassily chair, designed 1925-26, inspired by the construction of a bicycle, or Wilhelm Wagenfeld's elegant glass and nickel desk lamp from 1924, often known simply as the Bauhaus lamp. These pieces perfectly embodied the school's theories of functionalism, honesty of materials, and suitability for industrial production.
So a move away from pure theory.
Yes, especially after the school moved to Dessau. There was a definite shift away from the more expressionist, craft-based beginnings towards a focus on practical industrial application. Gropius saw the school as becoming a powerhouse of industrial design, serving industry directly.
What about textiles at the Bauhaus?
The textile workshop, led for much of its existence by Günther Stölzl, was actually one of the few departments at the Bauhaus to regularly take its prototypes through to mass production, generating significant income for the school. The abstract teachings of painters like Paul Klee, who taught there, strongly influenced the workshop's output, emphasizing geometric forms, vivid but carefully considered color combinations, texture, and tactility.
Were there figures who anticipated modernism, proto-modernists?
Yes, definitely. We mentioned Christopher Dresser earlier. His forward-thinking maximum effect with minimum means really emphasized an economy of style and the importance of fitness for purpose, ideas that became central to modernism. His voyage to Japan in 1876 reinforced these views. Crucially, Dresser sought to make his proto-modernist vision available to ordinary people by collaborating directly with industry to mass-produce his designs for metalware, ceramics, glass, and textiles. His Clutha glass range for James Cooper and Sons even featured deliberate imperfections like bubbles and streaks, celebrating the process.
Charles Rennie Mackintosh, where does he fit?
Mackintosh, a key figure in the Glasgow School in Scotland, offered a distinctive, highly influential take on modern design around the turn of the century. His style was predominantly rectilinear, but often softened by gentle curves and pierced squares. His highly stylized, almost abstract motif of a rose, the Glasgow rose, was characteristic. His integrated designs for interiors like the Willow Tea Rooms or Hill House are masterpieces of this unique style.
And the Wiener Werkstatt in Vienna.
The Wiener Werkstatt, Vienna Workshop, founded in 1903 by Josef Hoffmann and Koloman Moser, was another hugely influential group emerging from the Vienna secession movement. It was based, like some arts and crafts ventures, on the medieval guild model, where members were taught practical crafts alongside design theory.
What was their philosophy?
They believed strongly in the concept of the Gesamtkunstwerk, the total work of art, arguing that every element of a building's architecture and interior fittings should follow a single unified theme. Unlike the Bauhaus or later modernists, however, they made few concessions to the mass market, valuing intense labor and high-quality materials, producing luxurious, often geometrically patterned items for a wealthy clientele. Hoffman once said, "Better to work 10 days on one product than make 10 products in one day." His starkly geometric Cabaret Fledermaus chair is a good example.
Then there was de Stijl, even stricter.
Extremely strict. De Stijl, the style, emerged in the Netherlands during World War I. This small but influential group, centered around the journal De Stijl, developed a radical utopian approach to design. They aimed for universal harmony by restricting form to purely vertical and horizontal lines and color palettes primarily to the primary colors, red, yellow, blue, plus black, white, and gray. Sometimes diagonals were allowed.
Who were the main figures?
Key adherents included the painter Piet Mondrian, famous for his abstract grid paintings, and the architect and furniture designer Gerrit Rietveld. Rietveld's furniture, like his iconic red and blue chair, rigidly followed these principles, looking like three-dimensional Mondrian compositions. They completely rejected historicism, aiming for a total clean break with the past.
Functional modernism takes these ideas further. Le Corbusier.
Yes, figures like the Swiss-French architect Le Corbusier became hugely influential proponents of functional modernism. He famously saw domesticity as an extension of industry, arguing in his book Vers une Architecture, Towards an Architecture, that the modern house must become a machine for living in, efficient, rational, stripped of unnecessary ornament.
Who else worked in this vein?
Charlotte Perriand, a pioneering designer who collaborated closely with Le Corbusier and Pierre Jeanneret, focused particularly on furniture design suitable for mass production, often utilizing materials like tubular steel and leather, creating icons like the LC4 chaise longue. Eileen Gray, though working more independently, also designed influential furniture, often using geometric forms and materials like tubular steel and lacquer, as well as abstract pattern rugs that provided vital color accents to austere modernist schemes.
American modernism had its own flavor. Frank Lloyd Wright.
Very much so. Frank Lloyd Wright stands as a giant of American modernism, though he preferred the term organic architecture. His prairie house style developed in the early 20th century and exemplified by houses like the Roby House in Chicago, 1908-10, featured low-slung horizontal lines, open floor plans, dramatic cantilevered overhangs, and bands of windows designed to harmonize with the flat landscape of the American Midwest.
And his furniture.
His furniture, often built-in, echoed this architectural emphasis on horizontality and integration. He frequently incorporated geometric motifs, sometimes based on hexagons and octagons. Later, after founding the Taliesin Fellowship Architectural School in 1932, his career was reinvigorated, leading to masterpieces like Falling Water, 1936, the breathtaking house built directly over a rocky waterfall in Pennsylvania, perhaps the ultimate expression of his ideal of living in harmony with nature.
Studio pottery saw a revival too.
Yes. Alongside industrial modernism, there was a significant revival of studio pottery, focusing on individual expression and handcraftsmanship, but often informed by modernist aesthetics. Bernard Leach, after studying pottery in Japan, established his St. Ives pottery in Cornwall, England, and became hugely influential, promoting an Anglo-Japanese aesthetic focused on simple, functional forms and traditional glazes like his ash glazes or rich black Tomoku glaze.
Who were his students?
His influential students included Michael Cardew, who later worked in Africa, and notable female potters like Catherine Pleidel-Bouverie and Nora Braden, who experimented extensively with wood-fired kilns and ash glazes derived from specific plants.
Lucy Ree.
Lucy Ree, an Austrian emigre working in London, was initially influenced by Leach, but developed her own highly refined style. She extended her craft beyond stoneware to delicate porcelain, becoming known for her elegant, simple throne vessels, often decorated with distinctive textured or brightly colored glazes, and later her collectible ceramic buttons.
Any key American studio potters?
Maija Grotell, originally from Finland, became a key teacher at the Cranbrook Academy of Art near Detroit. Her extensive research into glazes enabled architect Eero Saarinen to use Mary Shire, working in New Hampshire, created pots decorated with naive, incised line drawings, often reminiscent of tribal art, aiming to convey some aspect of the human spirit.
Scandinavian silver embraced modernism too.
Yes, particularly the Danish firm Georg Jensen. While Jensen's own early work often owed more to Art Nouveau's flowing lines and natural motifs, the company was propelled into the international modernist spotlight largely thanks to the sleek, functional, and often undecorated designs contributed by his colleague Johan Rode from 1906 onwards. Their work epitomized Scandinavian modern design.
And new materials like chrome and plastic emerge.
Yes, this period saw the increasing use and acceptance of materials that would become synonymous with modern design. Chrome plating offered a hard, durable, mirror-bright finish, while early plastics like Bakelite offered new possibilities for molded forms. These materials, often associated with streamlining and affordability, paved the way for the aesthetics of the next major style, Art Deco.
Right, Art Deco. That feels like a shift towards glamour again, doesn't it? The 1920s and 30s.
It does. Art Deco was a truly global style, although its origins lie in Paris in the years just before World War I, stemming from a desire among French designers to create a new, distinctly French style for a new century. It really burst onto the world stage and reached a mass audience through the huge Exposition Internationale des Arts Décoratifs et Industriels Modernes held in Paris in 1925. That's where the name Art Deco eventually came from, though it wasn't widely used at the time.
It seemed to draw from a really wide range of influences.
Absolutely. It was incredibly eclectic. One major influence was ancient Egypt. Howard Carter's dramatic unearthing of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 sparked a worldwide craze, Egyptomania. Suddenly, pharaohs' heads, stylized eagles, scarab beetles, lotus flowers, and hieroglyphic motifs appeared everywhere on furniture, jewelry, textiles, architecture. Designers often combine these motifs with a characteristic color palette, splashing gold with white, black, earth red, turquoise, and ultramarine blue.
What else?
Ancient American cultures were another key source. Stepped or zigzag forms derived from Aztec and Maya temples and pyramids appeared frequently, often called the skyscraper style. Motifs like lightning flashes and stylized sunrays were also common. African art, particularly the simplified, powerful forms of tribal masks and ancestral figures discovered by artists like Picasso, also had a profound influence, leading to an increased use of exotic materials like ivory, ebony, and sherd skin.
The ballets Russes.
Yes. Serge Diaghilev's Ballet Russes, which caused a sensation in Paris before the war with its vibrant costumes by Leon Bakst and exotic themes, had a huge impact on the formative period of Art Deco, inspiring a taste for bright, clashing colors, bold geometric patterns, and sumptuous exotic materials.
So how did this translate into furniture? More streamlined?
Generally, yes. Early Art Deco designers consciously moved away from the organic curls and whiplashes of Art Nouveau, seeking a simpler, more disciplined, often geometric aesthetic. French designers like Paul Follot used relatively simple, traditional shapes, but updated them with flattened, stylized carvings of flowers or baskets of fruit, often in luxurious materials.
Ruhlmann was a big name.
Émile Jacques Ruhlmann was perhaps the epitome of luxurious French Art Deco furniture. He became known for his elegant, often large-scale pieces characterized by smooth, flat veneered or lacquered surfaces, frequently inlaid with ivory or featuring geometric designs in contrasting exotic woods. His work was incredibly refined and expensive. Sue et Mar, another prominent French firm, produced massive, often gilded and lacquered showstoppers that drew inspiration from the neoclassical style but gave it a distinct Art Deco grandeur.
And the skyscraper style in America.
Yes, Paul T. Frankel, an Austrian émigré working in New York, introduced his influential skyscraper furniture line around 1925 with tall, set-back forms directly referencing the city's new architecture. This influenced other American designers. Gilbert Rode was another key figure who helped popularize sleek, often Bauhaus-influenced furniture in the U.S., designing practical yet stylish pieces, often using chrome and new materials from manufacturers like Herman Miller.
What are the key characteristics of Art Deco furniture?
Look for bold, geometric shapes, sometimes stepped or zigzag profiles. An architect-designed feel is common. The influence of streamlining from cars, trains, and planes is often apparent in curved corners and horizontal banding. Chrome is frequently used for legs, handles, and trim. Monochromatic schemes, especially black and white or silver, were popular, alongside bold color contrasts.
Ceramics in Art Deco. Fashionable figurines were big.
Very big. Ceramic figurines produced in this era often closely resemble illustrations in contemporary fashion magazines like Vogue. They depicted elegant, elongated women in the latest couture garments and hairstyles, the bob, the Marcel wave. The Goldscheider factory in Vienna particularly excelled at capturing these fashionable details in glazed earthenware.
Who else made these?
Other noteworthy makers included Goebel and Hutchenreuther in Germany, often producing figures of exotic dancers or athletes. The Lenzi factory in Italy made distinctive felt dolls, but also ceramic figures, often featuring languid, sometimes nude, female figures with characteristically painted faces.
What about more modern-looking ceramics?
Susie Cooper in England was important. She set up her own pottery in the late 1920s, aiming to create reasonably priced earthenware with a fresh, modern look. She used techniques like lithography and banding to apply geometric designs, abstract patterns, dots, dashes, and simple, stylized motifs, bringing Art Deco style to everyday tableware.
And American innovations.
American potteries embraced the style too. Roseville Pottery produced its striking Futura range, featuring angular vases with stepped profiles and interesting mottled glazes. And perhaps most iconic is the Jazz Bowl, designed by Victor Schreckengost for Cowan Pottery in 1931. Commissioned as a punch bowl, its vibrant turquoise glaze is covered with black enamel decoration, vividly encapsulating the energy of New York's New Year's Eve festivities, skyscrapers, and the spirit of the Jazz Age. It's pure Art Deco.
Glass. Lalique continued to dominate.
René Lalique, who had been a star of Art Nouveau jewelry, successfully reinvented himself as a master glassmaker in the Art Deco era. He shifted primarily to using molds and presses to mass-produce glass. His distinctive opalescent, frosted, and clear glass designs often featured stylized female figures, marine life, shell shapes, or cascading blossoms. Think of it as a Bacchante vase, or the Peruches, a parakeet's vase, or his serpent perfume bottle. He also produced vast quantities of architectural glass panels and lighting fixtures for public buildings, ocean liners, and trains.
Who else was working in glass?
Other French designers like Jean Lus and Marcel Goupy used enamel decoration applied to simple glass forms, often featuring stylized floral or geometric motifs. In Britain, clear-cut glass remained a specialty, but designers like Keith Murray created elegant, simple-cut and engraved tableware for Stevens and Williams that was heavily influenced by the clean lines of contemporary Swedish glassmakers like Orrefors.
And American glass.
Mass production through molding and pressing dominated the American market. Firms like Phoenix Glass and Consolidated Lamp and Glass often produced designs that directly copied or closely imitated Lalique, or created original designs like Reuben Haley's striking Cubist-inspired ruborhombic glassware line for Consolidated.
Lighting becomes even more established.
Yes, electric light was now widely established in homes and public spaces in developed countries. Art Deco designers still found novelty and glamour in lighting design. Lalique, as mentioned, was a leader in decorative glass lights. Designers like Mark Errol created distinctive lamps combining geometric wood bases with metal elements.
Chrome and plastic really took off in Art Deco.
They absolutely did. These became signature materials of the era, embodying modernity and machine-age aesthetics. Chrome plating offered that desirable mirror shine, durability, and corrosion protection for metal items. Early plastics like Bakelite and Catalin could be easily molded into the streamlined shapes characteristic of Art Deco, making them ideal for inexpensive accessories like radio casings, cigarette boxes, cocktail shakers, ashtrays, and dressing table sets.
So they made style affordable.
Exactly. These machine-age wonders allowed manufacturers to produce stylish, modern-looking products that relied on their smooth surface quality and overall form rather than expensive hand decoration. This helped democratize Art Deco style, making it accessible for those on a budget. Major companies like Revere Copper and Brass, collaborating with designers like Norman Bell Geddes and Chase Brass and Copper, working with Russell Wright, produced ranges of affordable stylish chrome and brass cocktail sets, lamps, and smokers' accessories. Jean Puy-Forcat in France, however, worked at the luxury end, creating geometric silver pieces, while the German firm Zimmermann excelled in metalwork, often incorporating ivory or cabochon stones.
Clocks reflected the style, too.
Inevitably, Art Deco's immense popularity was clearly reflected in clock case design. These ranged from unique, luxurious works by top designers like René Lalique's molded glass clocks to mass-produced items featuring characteristic stepped forms, geometric patterns, contrasting materials like chrome and bakelite or stylized numerals. Art Deco textiles were vibrant and geometric. The couturier Paul Poiret famously encouraged the Fauvist painter Raoul Dufy to design textiles, leading to fabrics with bold, abstract figures and strong colors. Eileen Gray's textile designs were typically based on abstract geometric forms. The 1925 Paris International Exhibition really confirmed France's leadership in modern textile design at the time.
Sculpture. The theme was the liberated woman.
Very much so. Small-scale decorative sculpture was highly popular as home adornment, and women were undoubtedly the favorite subject. This reflected their increased social freedom, activity, and independence in the post-WWI era, women voting, working, participating in sports.
Who are the key sculptors? Chiparus?
Demetrius Chaparis, a Romanian sculptor working in Paris, became particularly famous for his chryselephantine figures combining bronze, often gilded or cold painted, with carved ivory faces and hands. His subjects were often exotic dancers in elaborate, revealing, Oriental-style costumes inspired by the ballet roses or athletic modern women.
And Ferdinand Price.
Price, a German sculptor, also specialized in chryselephantine figures. He became known for his charming, more naturalistic portraits of sporty, independent young women, often depicted engaged in physical activities like swimming, golf, tennis, or skiing, or captured in dynamic, athletic poses.
Posters continued to be sophisticated.
Yes, poster advertising reached unprecedented levels of graphic sophistication during the Art Deco period, featuring eye-catching, often streamlined or geometric designs and bold typography. Major transport companies like the London Underground and railway companies in Britain and France employed leading artists like Edward McKnight Kauffer and A.M. Cassandra to create iconic travel posters.
It was truly international.
Absolutely. Posters advertised everything from fashionable evenings out in places like Calcutta to luxury ocean liner travel on the Holland America line. The style was adapted globally. Even beyond the Iron Curtain later, film posters, for instance, took on different countenances, like Wiktor Gorka's disturbing 1973 Polish poster for the film Cabaret, featuring a Nazi swastika disturbingly composed of dancers' legs, a much darker interpretation of Deco themes.
Okay, so we've reached the post-war era and beyond. Things seem to fragment more here. We move into postmodernism from the 1970s onwards. What prompted this shift?
It was a complex shift, but broadly speaking, the widespread optimism and belief in progress that characterized much of the mid-20th century began to wane in the late 1960s and 70s. Economic changes like the oil crisis, political disillusionment following events like the Vietnam War, and a growing awareness of environmental issues led to a certain cynicism. The utopian dream of industrial technology solving all problems, which had roots back before WWI and culminated in modernism, effectively ended for many designers and thinkers.
So postmodernism was a reaction against modernism.
Very much so. At its core, postmodernism involved a rejection of the strict rules and perceived purity of high modernism, particularly the famous dictum form follows function. Designers began to challenge preconceived ideas of good taste and good design. They started re-examining materials like glass and plastics, often using them in ironic or unexpected ways.
Looking back again.
Yes, there was a return to historical appropriation, but in a very different way from 19th century historicism. Postmodern designers playfully borrowed and combined motifs and forms from different historical eras, often juxtaposing them in deliberately jarring or witty ways. Think of Robert Venturi's Chippendale-inspired chairs with exaggerated details made in the 1980s.
Surface decoration comes back.
Big time. Postmodernism often emphasized surface decoration and visual impact over structural form or pure function. Designers experimented with materials like plastic laminates that imitated natural finishes like wood grain or marble, but in deliberately artificial colors or patterns. There was a focus on pattern, color, and symbolism.
Mixing materials, too.
Yes. Another key characteristic was the mixing of materials in unconventional ways. Combining costly, luxurious materials like marble, semi-precious metals, or fine leather with cheap plastics or synthetics, or sometimes giving cheap materials like chipboard deliberately expensive-looking finishes. It was all about challenging hierarchies and expectations.
Furniture design. Italy still leads.
Yes, Italy continued to be a major center for innovative furniture manufacture throughout this period, with companies like Cappellini, B&B Italia, Cassina, and Edra employing leading international designers and pushing boundaries.
But it becomes more global.
Definitely. There was huge global cross-pollination. UK-based designers like Jasper Morrison, Tom Dixon, Ron Arad, Mark Newson, though Australian-born, and Konstantin Grecic, German-born but often associated with London, gained international prominence. French designers like Philippe Starck and the Bourlac brothers became global stars.
Wendell Castle, where does his work fit?
Wendell Castle, an American furniture maker initially associated with the studio craft movement, produced significant postmodern work from the mid-1980s onwards. His pieces focused increasingly on sculptural form, vibrant color, and conceptual content. Influenced partly by the Memphis group, he emphasized surface pattern, often painting, staining, or lacquering the wood of his often fantastical furniture forms, like his Dr. Cagliari collection.
Tell us about Studio Alchimia.
Studio Alchimia, founded in Milan in the late 1970s by Alessandro and Adriano Guerriero, was a highly influential experimental design collective. They deliberately rejected the constraints of commercial production, focusing instead on creating one-off or limited edition pieces that functioned almost as manifestos, challenging modernist orthodoxy.
What was their aesthetic?
Alessandro Mendini, a key figure, described their eclectic approach as seeking kaleidoscopic beauty. He famously retorted Mies van der Rohe's modernist mantra, less is more with less is a bore. They produced what some called bastardized Bauhaus furniture, deliberately combining low industrial materials like painted metal tubing and plastic laminate with high craft materials like crystal glass or briarwood veneers. Their influence extended beyond furniture to graphic design, stage sets, and even fashion.
And then came Memphis, even more radical.
Ettore Sottsass, who had been involved with alchemia, founded the Memphis Group in Milan in 1980. It became hugely famous, almost notorious, in the early 80s. While also a collective effort, Memphis was perhaps less theoretically driven than alchemia and relied heavily on skilled Milanese craftsmen to realize their often quite challenging designs.
International designers involved.
Yes. Sottsass brought together designers from Italy, France, Spain, England, Austria, Japan, and the U.S. Their work typically preferred bold surface pattern over pure form, famously using colorful, often garishly patterned plastic laminates, originally developed for utilitarian purposes, to create a flat, two-dimensional, almost comic strip look. They blended broad cultural references from pop art to suburban kitsch to ancient Egypt in a provocative, energetic mix.
What happened after Memphis?
By the late 1980s, the initial shockwave of postmodernism subsided somewhat. The direct backlash against modernism softened, and, interestingly, a certain nostalgia for 1950s forms and aesthetics began to emerge. Design started to pursue form more for its own sake again, sometimes leading to highly sculptural pieces.
Philippe Starck becomes huge.
Philippe Starck's work became incredibly prolific and visible in the 1990s. He embraced plastic for its flexibility and affordability, designing everything from lemon squeezers to chairs to hotel interiors. His slender, often curvaceous furniture frequently featured playful zoomorphism, incorporating forms resembling wings, horns, or legs, adding an element of cuteness or surprise.
Mark Newson.
Mark Newson's career was launched by his iconic Lockheed lounge chair, first created in 1985-86, a chaise longue inspired by the streamlined forms of 1950s aircraft. Painstakingly clad in riveted aluminum panels over a fiberglass body, it became a symbol of high-end sculptural design.
Alessi in collaborations.
The Italian company Alessi became masters of producing iconic, often witty, mass-produced metalware through collaborations with famous designers and architects. Alessandro Mendini's playful Anna G. corkscrew, 1994, resembling a smiling woman, gave a literal face to accessible, desirable design. Architect Michael Graves's famous kettle with the bird whistle, 1985, featuring a tubular blue plastic grip, red spheres, and rivet detailing, spawned a whole companion range of kitchen items.
Design making everyday objects desirable.
Yes. Companies like Dyson, with James Dyson's revolutionary cyclonic vacuum cleaner, launched 1983, and Apple, particularly with the launch of the colorful, translucent iMac computer in 1998, designed by Jonathan Ive, demonstrated how appealing industrial design, sometimes even revealing the internal workings, could transform household appliances from purely functional items into desirable display objects.
Ceramics after modernism. What happened with clay?
Things got really interesting. In the 1950s, Peter Volkos, working in California, spearheaded what's often called a revolution in clay, heavily influenced by abstract expressionist painting and Japanese ceramic traditions. He challenged the traditional emphasis on refinement and perfection, celebrating the raw, physical nature of clay itself.
How did his work look?
His large-scale ceramic works, often referred to as stacks, plates, or ice buckets, were aggressively torn, twisted, gouged, and assembled, often collapsing under their own weight in the kiln. They existed primarily as powerful abstract sculptures rather than functional objects.
Postmodern pottery followed.
Yes, pottery in the later 20th century often occupied a middle ground, with artists creating expressive and figural sculpture alongside practical pieces that still push boundaries. Paul Soldner, a student of Volkos, experimented with American adaptations of Japanese raku firing techniques. Ken Ferguson created sensual, anthropomorphic vases, sometimes with mermaid handles.
The funk movement.
Yes, particularly strong in California in the 60s and 70s. The funk art movement in ceramics embraced humor, irreverence, and often trompe-l'oeil effects. Richard Shaw became known for his incredibly realistic ceramic sculptures, recreating everyday objects like books, cards, or tin cans. Robert Arneson made witty, sometimes disturbing self-portrait busts. Noy Volkov's Bosch teapot directly alluded to the fantastical paintings of Hieronymus Bosch.
Did traditional pottery continue?
Oh, yes. Alongside these more sculptural movements, many potters continued to work within established traditions but often updated them. Jim Malone in Britain uses the Korean hakame brushwork technique. Karl Scheid in Germany creates elegant slab-built vessels reminiscent of open books. Janis Chelenko brought vibrant painterly decoration inspired by artists like Howard Hodgkin to functional pottery forms with her designs like poppy, peacock, and tornado for Darlington pottery.
Architects design ceramics too.
Yes, collaborations became common. Robert Venturi designed his playful village tea set, decorated with abstracted country cottage motifs for the Swid Powell Company. You see plates designed by pop artist Roy Lichtenstein, sculptural ceramics by architect Zaha Hadid, and even tea services inspired by the graffiti art of Keith Haring, reflecting that cross-disciplinary postmodern spirit.
Glass also became more monumental.
Absolutely. Dale Chihuly, the Seattle-based artist, became arguably the world's most famous contemporary glass artist, known for his incredibly ambitious, colorful, often monumental glass sculptures and installations. These are frequently composed of hundreds, sometimes thousands, of individual blown glass components assembled into forms resembling chandeliers, sea creatures, or fantastical gardens.
It works with a team.
Yes, after losing sight in one eye in a car accident in 1976 and later injuring his shoulder, Chihuly shifted from being the primary glassblower, the gaffer, to becoming the designer and orchestrator, working with the large team of skilled blowers who execute his vision. He also co-founded the influential Pilchuck Glass School near Seattle in 1971, which has nurtured generations of glass artists.
Who else is notable in contemporary glass?
Toots Zinsky, who studied with Chihuly, developed her unique filet de verre technique, fusing threads of colored glass into distinctive crimped, shell-like vessels with incredibly varied colors and patterns. Engraved glass continued to evolve, with precision tools allowing contemporary engravers like Jiří Harkuba in the Czech Republic, a foremost exponent of glass portraiture, to achieve incredibly subtle and detailed effects, often creating 3D depictions within solid blocks of clear glass.
Other techniques.
Kiln forming and casting glass, rather than blowing, also became increasingly important for studio glass artists. Keith Cummings in Britain, who describes himself as a constructivist, combines cast and build glass elements with metals. Jorg Zimmermann blows glass through metal netting to create inventive, textured shapes.
Lighting design after modernism. More experimental.
Yes, lighting became an increasingly important and experimental field, especially driven by the development of more versatile plastics, which allowed for sculptural globes, complex curves, and a wide range of colors. Designers like Joe Colombo, working with the Italian company Cartel, explored multifaceted applications of plastic in table lamps like his bulbous lamp. Gael Lenti's telescopic pipistrello bat lamp became an icon.
Lights becoming like creatures.
Sometimes, yes. As technology advanced with halogen bulbs and later LEDs allowing for smaller light sources, designs sometimes took on anthropomorphic or zoomorphic elements. There's also the salvage or ready-made movement in lighting design, particularly emerging in the late 80s and 90s as a rebellion against slick 1980s consumerism. Designers started using recycled objects or industrial materials on a small scale, resulting in unique lights that often resembled assembled sculptures with exposed bulbs. High-tech lighting also developed, with pioneers like Gino Sarfati designing innovative halogen lamps like his NR 607 from 1971.
Finally, metalware in the postmodern and contemporary era.
Well, at the sculptural end of the spectrum, you have figures like Albert Paley, an American artist blacksmith who achieved international recognition as a sculptor, producing monumental and architectural metalwork gates, railings, furniture, often characterized by powerful organic forms. His work is typically site-specific and not mass-produced.
And Alessi's collaborations again.
Yes, Alessi continued its influential program of commissioning architect-designed homeware. Following the success of Graves's kettle, they launched the ambitious Tea and Coffee Piazza project in 1983, inviting 11 leading architects, including Alessandro Mendini, Robert Venturi, and Kazumasa Yamashita, to design limited edition silver tea and coffee services that were essentially miniature buildings. Venturi's featured motifs from Michelangelo's Capitoline pavement. Yamashita's used stacked geometric forms.
Zaha Hadid's work.
Architect Zaha Hadid also designed for Alessi, like her crevasse vase from 2005. Made from polished stainless steel, its dramatically twisted tapered form emphasized the reflective sculptural properties of the metal itself, entirely lacking surface decoration, a kind of postmodern minimalism.
Any other notable examples?
The Brazilian Campana brothers designed their chaotic-looking blow-up series of baskets and bowls for Alessi in 2004, made from seemingly randomly arranged steel rods. Philippe Starck designed the witty Ray Hollis ashtray for EXO, which addressed changing social mores by having a mechanism to seal lit cigarette butts inside. Earlier, Russell Wright produced influential streamlined, spun aluminum tableware in the mid-century. Lino Sabatini created elegant modernist silver designs. And Gerald Benny, a British silversmith, developed a distinctive textured finish for silver and pewter in the 1960s that became widely influential and copied.
Wow, what an absolutely incredible journey through time and style. From the, practical yet symbolic origins of decorative arts way back in ancient Greece.
Through the spiritual grandeur of Byzantium, the soaring heights of Gothic,
The sheer exuberance of Rococo, the return to order with Neoclassicism, the whole eclectic mix of 19th century revivals.
then the focus on craft and arts and crafts, the organic rebellion of Art Nouveau, the machine-age purity of modernism,
The glamour of Art Deco, and finally landing in the eclectic, expressive, sometimes rebellious diversity of postmodern and contemporary design. It's quite a ride.
It really is. And what you see is how each era, adapted existing materials or wholeheartedly embraced new technologies. They were constantly reshaping the objects we live with, and these objects in turn profoundly reflect the societal shifts, the beliefs, the anxieties, the aspirations of their time. It's this continuous conversation between human needs, aesthetic desires, and the available means of creation.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? Well, the next time you pick up a ceramic mug, or admire a piece of furniture, or even just flick a light switch, perhaps you'll see not just an object, but a whisper of history, a bold statement of its time, a testament to human creativity. What story does the design of your everyday objects tell you?
It's worth looking closer, isn't it? There's hidden artistry and history all around us.
Absolutely. We encourage you to notice it in your own surroundings. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
And we look forward to our next exploration together.